Welcome to this video. Today we'll learn that not even tracking file is important. Actually, there is another case where ignoring files might be quite useful. So, what we'll do today? Today we'll introduce something that is called a dependency to a project. A dependency is, well, a code that you're not authoring. So somebody else did that and you're just using as a tool that other person's code. And often in the project structure, those kind of files, they appear in your project folder. However, having those code in a version control and Git is a bad idea because, well, there are several other tools to managing the dependencies and Git is not one of them. So what we'll have to do is to ignore some of the files and make sure they do not go to the project. And that's our plan for today. So now let's look at this simple scenario. Let's say that Bobby decided to add couple more other libraries like colors, to introduce colors into the system later, right? So he decided to use a third-party library called colors. So to do that, Bobby will have to do a couple of things. First, since he's working with Node.js, he will have to initiate the Node.js project. Don't pay too much attention at this code. So what just happened, we created a separate file. I can say it with git status. It's called package.json. This is the description of where to find dependencies. We need that file in the repository, right? But what we don't need is the folder with dependencies that Node.js will just now create for me. Okay, so the folder has been created. And if you see git status again, you'll see that node modules is the folder that contains only dependencies, not our code, has been added to our project. So what we want to do is to avoid adding this folder to the project, right? So our first option is very simple. You can just not type git add with the name of this folder. And this way, the Git will never actually track this file. Right? So it will remain red and ugly, so you will see every time you type git status, you will see that this folder is not tracked. Why is it bad? Well, that accidentally you can somehow add it to repository, and besides, it's much nicer and much more neat to see the clean status rather than the list of untracked files that in reality you don't want to see there. And the third point, if you have several files that you need to ignore and just few files that you really need to add to Git version control, then it will be harder to just with your eyes to scan the list of files and remember which ones of them you really need, which ones you don't need. It's much better to use something that Git has straight away, the ignore mechanism. So there is a special file that Git cares about in the root of your repository. Let's clear this thing. This file is called gitignore. And right now, I don't have this file in my project, so Git just sees every possible file. I will create now gitignore, and inside of this file, I will add the following entry, node modules. This is the directory that I don't want to add to my project. Okay, now I'll save the file. Let's see what are the contents, what are the contents of this folder. Readme MD, main.js, node modules that I don't really want, and package.json. Gitignore is not showing up because it starts with dot, and if I will list all the files, this way it comes out, right? So now gitignore is there. And what's interesting, oops, clear, not seller. What's interesting, if I now type git status, you will see that the folder that I didn't want to see in my project at all is actually ignored, right? There is another case. Sometimes you might have several files that share the same pattern that, well, you might want to ignore. Our application can generate log files, and that might be a normal log and error log. Let's just add these files. So I'll add the empty file called error log, and another file called normal log, or like let's call it horoscope log, right? I'll git status, and here they are. I don't want to see these log files because they are regenerated for each application run. Let's say I just want to keep the sources, only the code, only what really matters for development in Git. I don't want to keep some log files there. So what I do, right, I'm editing gitignore. Gitignore, not fitignore. Gitignore, yeah, let's edit it. And since gitignore supports the patterns, what I can say that not just node modules to ignore. What I want to ignore is everything that ends with .log. And this way, both files, error log and horoscope log, will fit, right? Now let's clear the screen again. Type git status, all nice and clear. So all log files are ignored. I don't see them in git status at all, even though I see these files in the listing of the folder. So they are present here. So you see them, right? So now let's do the next logical step. Let's finish our commit and send over this code to Jenny. So we added the dependency. Now it will be Jenny's part of work to make this dependency properly work and add colors to our console output of a horoscope app. So git status. Now, since I have two files, I have two options. Either I can type git add and list both files. This syntax is also accepted. That's one option. Or I can type just git add dot, meaning git add everything that is in the current folder or in its subfolders. So I'll choose the second option. But be careful, if you have something that you planned to ignore and you forgot to add that to gitignore, you will accidentally add that to index, right? Git status. So I've got gitignore package.json, looks good. Git commit minus message minus m means that I want to pass the message from command line. And what I want to write, well, git commit should be small and the message should be descriptive. So what I did in this commit, I added the initialized package.json and added the dependency. That's good enough. And don't forget that now if Jen will do git pull, what will happen? Just think about it for a second. What will happen if Jen is doing git pull now? I'm hitting enter right now and you see that nothing happens. Git says already up to date. Why? Bob just committed something. Jen is not seeing the new changes. Is Git broken? No way. We just forgot to share our changes with the world. So what we need to do here to fix the situation, remember the command to send the changes out to the world, git push, right? And now, since git push succeeded, Jenny can do git pull, and she received the changes. Now let's see what exactly Jenny received. See, there is no log files and no node modules files on Jenny's machine, right? So Jenny just received what was not ignored by Git, which is awesome. That's exactly what we don't want it to do. So let's recap what we learned in this video. We learned that Git has a special file called gitignore that you can use to list the files that you do not want to see in your source control. Usually those are some utilitary files like logs or the dependencies that you want to keep in your workspace. However, do not share that with the other team members. That might be something that is private, something like your password file, right? There might be a file that stores your private key and you don't want to share that either. So all those will go to gitignore. Gitignore has very simple syntax. You can just type the name of the folder, it will be ignored, or you can use wildcard. The star means any symbol, and star.log, for example, means all the log files. You can read more about gitignore on the official documentation. So if you need a little bit more complex pattern, don't hesitate, go read it. It's quite easy to follow and easy to grasp. So in the next video, we'll continue exploring Git. See you then.